I've been involved in an owner of Devon since my grandfather gave me a calf when I was 2 years old for my birthday. Let's move on. Other directors. Andrew Van Ord.
Hello, my name's Andrew Van Ward. I live in Russell, Pennsylvania, and I've been a director, I think, for 10 years now, 11 years now. And grew up with Devons, and we've got about 15 of them out back now. So,
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Steve Burton.
Steve Burton, Remsen, New York, retired veterinarian. Been a member, I think, for like 13 years. We got a lot of Devons. I lose count. So, but I'm on the board of directors as well, and volunteered to chair the genetics committee. That's it.
Thank you, Steve. Mark Winslow.
Good morning. My name is Mark Winslow from Falmouth, Maine. We currently have 20 plus head of Devons on our farm. I have 2 pair of working cattle that I'm training previously right now and going on forward. And I've been a director probably for 6 years, I think, and like helping out the board as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, next director, Jeremy Michaud.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jeremy Michaud. I'm from East Hardwick, Vermont. We've had Devons for probably, I don't know, 17, 18 years. Do some working steer stuff with them, cow-calf operation mostly, and we own and operate a dairy farm in addition to the Devons.
Okay, and we have one other director, Mr. Dale Fryer, who's not joining us today. He's in central New York in Seneca Falls. He and his family have a number of Devons, a nice operation. He's an emergency room physician and he's on work today, so he will not be joining us. Moving on, let's Bonnie, my wife, is our registrar. You want to say a few words, Bon?
Yes, I'm sorry. Did you say Bruce too? Did you get Bruce? I'm sorry. Okay, yes, I'm Bonnie Hall, registrar for 11 years. And I'm happy to see most of you here that I haven't met in person. So that's wonderful. I'm glad to have you join us today. Thank you.
So let me go through the other members on our screen. You can introduce yourself briefly. I have one here that's labeled Howard.
Yep, Howard Daniels. I'm in upstate New York, not far from Steve Burton. I have about 20 head. I've only been doing this a few years, so I'm still learning the ropes and appreciate help from the association.
Okay, next I'm going to call on Mr. Lawrence Gilly.
I'm Lawrence Gilly, also Central New York, and I got my first Devons in 2003 when I retired as a missionary from Africa. And I'm wanting to check on whether or not I'm the oldest Devon breeder in the world.
Thank you, Lawrence. Next, we'll go to Kathy Van Ord.
There we go. Kathy Van Ord, Andrew's wife, married into the Devons, so I kind of inherited it when we got married. So that's about it.
Thank you, Kathy. Next, we have, I believe, Sam Peck.
Hey, how you doing? We're down in Southwest Virginia, originally from Vermont. I actually lived in Tunbridge and Brookfield, which is near Tunbridge. Grew up on a dairy farm. My grandfather was the last person in our family that owned Devons back in the 40s. But we have a small little group here. We got a steer and a bull and half Devon, and I had a beautiful heifer Devon. We milking them and weighing their milk and making cheese.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Next, I have Luke Wellborn.
Hi, Luke Wellborn, also in Southwest Virginia. I'm outside of Blacksburg, about 25-ish head.
Okay. Next, I see a couple of folks with the name of Susan on the screen.
Clayton and Sue Randall. We had Devons from around 1980 until about 7 years ago. Clayton still has a team of oxen. He's hanging on to them. They're like 15. And I was a registrar before Bonnie.
So those of you who've been around long enough remember Sue as our registrar, and Sue did a fantastic job for a long, long time when the organization was a lot smaller than it is today. Next, let's go to
the registry had less than 400 animals when I took it over.
right. Wow. Let's move on next to Arkansas and Ryan Rathje. Hi, Ryan. How are you? You're on mute, Ryan.
There we go. Good morning, Ryan Rathje in Northwest Arkansas, and this is my 20th year with Milking Devons. Currently 11 head, down from 18 2 years ago. I'm so happy to see all of you live. I do remember meeting several, John and Bonnie, at the Missouri meeting in 2011. But we're certainly growing our population out here. I'm very glad to see everyone, and thank you for facilitating this meeting this way.
Thank you, Ryan. Next, let's go to Judy Sanderson.
Oops. Okay. Yes, I'm the other half of Bruce Farr, and everything he said applies to me too. And I'm tracking who's on the call, and we may have to check on a couple phone numbers to be sure we have their people's names. But other than that, things seem to be going well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Eric Chastain.
Yeah, my name is Eric Chastain, and my wife, Emily, who's also on the call, we started a regenerative farm a little over a year ago and got into Devons after doing some research and buying a beautiful starter herd of 9 from Terry Greer, who's on the call right now. Thank you very much, Terry. And now we're up to 12, and we're going to keep growing.
Okay, thank you, Eric. That leads me to Emily then, if you want to continue.
She might or might not be able to answer because she is at work, also wanting to just see what's going on with the meeting. So,
okay, perfect. Thank you. Then let's go to Terry Greer next.
Hi. I don't know if you can see me. I've been trying to play with this video, but my name is Terry Greer. I started her probably in 2019. I got most of my cows from Mike Darby out of Maryland, and I've been raising grass-fed beef and trying to improve my herd and my genetics over the last 6 years or so. I've met some of you all through the years and talked to some of y'all on the phone, and just been loving promoting the breed and being around these wonderful animals, and it's great to see you all here at this meeting.
Thank you, Terry. Next is Thomas Henning. Okay, he sent a chat. He's unable to log on or to talk to us. Let's move on. There's someone named Matt.
Good morning. This is Matt Matazik. We are out in Virginia. I met some of you the last time we had the show down in Virginia. We got our small herd from Richard Larson before he retired. So we currently have 5 head on the farm, and happy to be part of this group. Thank you.
Thank you. Derek Miner.
Hi, I'm Derek Miner. I've been involved with the Devons since 2005, so 20 years now. I've got about 14 head, expecting another one coming here in any week, and which is getting to be more than my fields can take. So if anybody's interested in getting some more Devons, let me know.
Thank you, Derek. We have someone with a Google Pixel 9 Pro XL. I believe they're in a car driving.
Yeah, John, this is Wayne Hawkins. My wife Sherry's with me. We're here in the Ozarks of Missouri.
Hello.
We've been raising Devons for about 8 years. We have the remainder of what was Joe Janowski's herd down here. And we've been working, bringing in some new bulls and everything and trying to work on the genetics, trying to help out the A2 situation.
Thank you, Wayne. Good to see you. Next, someone is labeled iPhone 10.
This is Matt Matesic. I think that's my wife, April. We have 4 small kids, and she
Okay.
texted me. She's dealing with her kids right now.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. Then we have 2 that are phone numbers. One's an 802 number, 802-269. Is that someone who wants to speak? No? Okay. And one other phone number, a 315 number.
That is probably my son Seth, who's out
Okay.
fixing fence and trying to watch his on his cell phone and fix fence at the same time. So
Multitask. Multitask. Okay. Thank you all for the introductions. I appreciate that. It's good to put names with faces. I've met many of you at meetings and visited your farms. There's a few new folks that Bonnie and I met, so we appreciate it. So let's get right into the agenda. And the first thing is to approve the minutes from last year's annual meeting.
John,
Yeah.
I got Patty on my telephone, Patty Howell trying to get in.
Okay,
Would you hold just a minute while I see if I can get her the right telephone number?
absolutely.
Give me just a moment, please. Oh. Um, Almost, John. Okay, John, I'm back. And John, can you hear me?
I can, Bruce.
Okay, that's a start. And I'll pop the agenda up in just a moment. You wanted the minutes?
Yeah, we'll go to the minutes.
Okay. Appreciate your patience. Okay. They should be on screen now.
Okay, did Patty Howell get called in?
And Patty's working with my wife right now, trying to get called in.
Okay, all right.
Oh, shoot. Hang on a minute, fellas. Bear with me. Judy.
Okay. Okay, the meeting ID is, it's a long one, 835-0731. Yeah, 3495. Pound sign, always hit the pound sign. Then you may get that recording again that asked you for the passcode. This is a shorter number. It is 142017 pound. Okay. Now, good luck. Well, hopefully we'll see you on the screen in just a few minutes. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. It'll show up with the phone number. Okay. Here. Bye-bye. She gets it.
Coming back with you, John.
Okay, Bruce, there's the agenda. Yeah.
Yep, I got the agenda and I can put the minutes on, hopefully very quickly.
So I think you set the minutes out electronically, Bruce,
They
correct?
have gone, they've gone out at last spring and again last Friday night. So maybe we should have already had them.
So while you're efforting getting those up, does anyone who has received them have any comments or corrections or things we have incorrect or need to add?
Yeah, John, I see a correction that might be worthwhile making.
Okay.
Under Herd Book, the second to the last sentence said the board has not endorsed the pre-made program in the past because they felt the information was secure. I believe it, the intent or what was said was the board believed it was the information was not secure.
I believe that was the gist of the conversation. So Bruce, we could maybe add that word in there.
Okay. I'm scrolling down. Okay, yep.
Other corrections or comments? So is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented and corrected?
I make a motion. Sam Peck.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'd second the motion.
Any further discussion?
And who was the second, please?
Mark Winslow.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye.
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 Those opposed? And I can't see the whole screen with everybody. Maybe Judy can. Is there anybody opposed?
Unfortunately, Judy's working with John Hammond now, trying to get him online. So I'm going to scroll down the screen to see if I have any shot at it. Or if you're opposed, would you unmute and just say that you're opposed?
Okay. You see anyone, Bruce?
No.
All right. We'll move on. I'm going to offer my report. It's fairly brief, but I'm going to touch on the Association of Directors meet monthly. As most of you know, we meet via, in this last year, we've been meeting via Zoom so we could work out some of the details so we could run this meeting on Zoom. Our meetings last between an hour and 3, depending on the subject matter. Some of the things we've tackled over the last year has been the new website. We've been trying to work out a new website for some time. I want to thank Dale Fryer, who took on the monumental task of getting this done, working with a contractor to give us a proposal and then to create what we have. There's been a number of glitches in it. We've had some stuff up that's been taken down. For instance, transfers were up for a little while. We've had a bunch of problems with those. That's down right now. Efforting some reworking on it so that it'll be much more efficient for our members. You can still join as a member online, but some of the other stuff is down, getting reworked a little bit. It's very difficult with the web companies, producing companies. Very few have ever done any sort of cattle registration work. So it's kind of a niche market, if you will. This company said they could get it done. It's been taking a little while. It's a work in progress. I apologize, but I think when we're all said and done, the new website is going to be very helpful, very useful, and certainly not to slight the old one. And I want to really give a huge thanks to Lawrence Gilly, who's been, what is it, Lawrence, almost 20 years, our webmaster, that Lawrence has been involved.
And Susan before me, because I just took over her work.
Yeah, so I mean, the website is a constant work in progress, as you who worked on it know, and this new one is going to be hopefully bigger and better than ever. And we put a lot of time, effort, and some money into it to get to where we are, and it will take a little more to get it even better, but we're working on it. So again, thank you to Lawrence, who's been dedicated to this and putting up your ads for sale and changing things on there, keeping everything as current as we could. We've also worked on establishing the Ray Clark scholarship, which you'll get a report on later. We have, as was requested of us last year at the annual meeting, reviewed the bylaws line by line, section by section, with a couple of sections at each meeting. You'll see a proposal for some minor changes later on in the meeting. Our youth ambassador program has continued on. That's still in its infancy. I think this is our second year with that. I do want to remind a few folks that this board is all volunteer, including the registrar. We do the best we can. Sometimes it's not the speediest, but we try to do what we can with the breed while we're still out actively, husbanding the breed, if you will. We're all busy with other jobs and farms. So we put as much into this association as we can. And I want to thank the directors for all the work they've put in the past year, and specifically Bonnie as a registrar for all the work in the past year. Important work, very time consuming. Also want to note that the American Milking Devon Cattle Association is registered with the IRS as a 501c5 organization, which means we are focused on what we've presented to the IRS to get that status, that we are a registry organization and an educational organization. Sometimes we get suggestions to do other things, but we're a little bit handcuffed. We can't get into things like rescuing herds and doing things like that. So just a little update on that we are somewhat limited by our status there and how we can apply our funds and so on. Any questions on the president's report before we move on? Okay. Bruce, let's move on to treasurer's report. If you can put that up on the screen, and I'll go through that.
On yeah, if the computer will unlock, I will. Again, stay with me. There we are.
There we go.
Let's see. Come on.
Okay, that's good for now, Bruce. There we go. So each year when I present the treasurer's report, for those of you who have not seen it or been to Tunbridge, I give a 3-year history so you can see if there's any trends with the association. So I'm just going to go through the most recent 2024 column. And you'll see that our balance on hand at the 1st of January was $11,643.24. We took in $1,900 in dues, $1,140 in registrations, transfers $910, $260 in semen sales, $118 in t-shirts, $250 in lost registrations, $216 in donations, a total income of $4,794. Now, for those of you who like math as much as I do, the dues number at $20 per member does not match up with Bonnie's report she's going to give you of how many members. That being, we have members who pay for prior year's dues because they feel like they should, or people who have paid for future year's dues because they send in a check for more money than they need for the process. So you'll see some of these numbers don't necessarily match the numbers of members, but that's the reason for that. This is money that comes in, it's accounted for as dues and accounted for in the income column here. Moving on to expenses. We did no advertising. Last year, we paid $50 as we usually do to rent the hall in Tunbridge. The next columns, we haven't spent any money on quite a while. Artists, authors, and films, the attorney we haven't used in a long time. No award, no brochures, no computer expense, no flowers for funerals, no herd book expense. And then our website, we spent $1,875 with the website company to start the work. We've made subsequent payments, of course, in this year. Our director's errors and omissions insurance stays constant at $698. We did not contribute to a judge at a fair this past year. $365 for newsletters and postcards. Those are the ones we mail out to members who do not have email addresses or want things in print. Office supply and registration forms for the stock that Bonnie gets to send out the forms, $495.12. The registrar is $50. That, as you know, is a sliding scale for aged animals, and anything over 3 years old, she gets a fee for each registration. That was only $50 in 2024. Moving on, regional show, we did contribute to one. Return check fees, there were none of those. There was $5 issued in a refund. Someone overpaid and got the $5 back. No money on fireproof safes. We still have a little room in our safes where we keep our historical records. No semen purchased by the association. Storage at American Breeders was $505.84 this year. The spring and fall gathering, we didn't have a spring or fall gathering, but the board authorized an expense of $2,500 to offset expenses that Bonnie and I incurred attending the World Devon Congress, which traveled up the East Coast in April of 2024. That cost for a couple to take that tour $15,000 plus airfare and transportation. So the $2,500 helped a little bit offset some of our costs to attend that. That was a co-hosted tour of Devon farms by the Red Devon Association and our association. So we had a stop at the Freers Farm in New York that was a American Milking Devon stop on that tour. The final stop at Plymouth Plantation was an American Milking Devon tour. Some of our directors were able to attend the event at Plymouth, some in New York. A few of our members at both places. I did a lot of thanks last year at the annual meeting, but again, I want to thank Mark and Kim Winslow for providing cattle to put on exhibit at Plymouth. And I want to thank Plymouth Plantation for hosting us. Did a fantastic job there. Bruce came down and worked that event. And out in New York, Dale Freer hosted a day at their farm. And we had, a good look at their cattle and a pair of working oxen and so on. And it was a great Congress, and we saw a lot of good Devons along the way, particularly a lot of beef Devons, but there were some milking Devons here and there among those, some in Virginia that we saw at a couple of farms, one in Pennsylvania, besides the hosts that we had. So enough about that. Back to the report. Technology, 0. T-shirt, 0. Scholarship fund, 0. Video production, 0. And the Youth Ambassador Program was 0 for total expenses. $6,543.96. Balance on hand, $9,893.28. I do want to make one additional comment, again, for those of you who track numbers. If you look at the end of 2023, it shows a balance on hand of $8,097. But the next day at the top of this column I just reviewed, it shows a balance of $11,643. A difference of roughly $3,600. That money was put on last year at the annual meeting to put back into the checkbook balance. The money had been expended out of our checkbook about 3 years ago when we had to refund some members that we had collected previous dues on, and it was voted to refund those monies. Those monies were refunded to all of those folks. But a great number of them said, no, we're not accepting the money. We're destroying the check. So there was that $3,600 hanging out there in the balance in nowhere of money that was actually sitting in our bank. Checks were written against it, but those checks were never cashed. So after 3 years, we decided, from hearing most of these people weren't going to cash, and we put that money back in the checkbook. So that explains the difference between the $8,000 and the $11,000. So now I'll entertain questions about the treasurer's report. Any questions? Comments?
John, shouldn't that money then be fall under a donation somewhere if people were just giving it back and saying they didn't want it? Shouldn't that come on here somewhere so it's not just coming out of midair?
I suppose we could list it on there, Derek, as that it was all accounted for when it was taken in, when those dues were paid in. And then it was accounted for in expenses under refunds when we paid it all back out. So it's just, I'll take your comment, and we could add a line in there somewhere of the exact amount, 3,600, whatever it is. I don't know where to put it though. Maybe as a footnote to this.
Can you just document it somewhere at the bottom, John, so that there's an explanation?
It's in the minutes from last year's meeting that we approved earlier on. If you read through those, it's in there. So yeah, I can add it as a footnote under here.
John?
Yeah.
Technically, it should be voted into what to do with that funds. And
It was last year at the annual meeting. It was voted to put it back into the checkbook.
Okay.
Yep. If you read the minutes, it's in last year's annual meeting.
Right.
So maybe I'm not thinking right about it, but if you tried to give it back to people and they said, no, you keep it, wouldn't that fall under donations? That should be listed under donations, and maybe there could be another heading under donations of something, but it seems like that would be where it would end up because people are just giving it back to the organization.
Technically, yeah.
So if I had a footnote underneath the balance here between the 2 years and say that 36, whatever the number is, are donations back from members, would that sound?
And reference the minutes, so if someone wanted to go and actually look at the motion, they'd know where to look.
Okay.
And I would add maybe back from refunds so they could tie it back to the minutes.
Yeah. However you want to word it.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that individual amount of money, it should be its own little motion, even though that's technically how it should be done.
So if we look at the minutes from last year, we've had a number of checks uncashed for the past 2 years that were from funds returned to members from the registration issue. The motion was made by John Madden, seconded by Andrew Van Ord. Membership considered those checks null and void and voted to return the funds to the Treasury.
Correct. But
that's the action from last year.
Right. But if you're gonna refund them to the Treasury, I like to mention it. It sounds better as it was donated back to the Treasury as a donation of X number of dollars. Then it's more clarified.
Let me just do the math here and I'll get you the exact number, then we can act on it. So the amount is $3,545.88. So I'll entertain a motion of how you want to put this on the treasurer's report. So if you want to make an official motion, now's the time.
I'll make it. I move that $3,545.88 be marked in the donation column as refunds from members.
Maybe unclaimed refunds. Would that
Yeah, I mean,
work?
something to that effect. So it'd be, I moved to $3,545.88 be moved from unclaimed refunds to donations.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I second it.
Second. Further discussion? Then the motion is to mark $3,545.88 as a donation of unclaimed refunds from the members. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'll call the motion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, then it's no one opposed, Bruce, right? I can't see the full screen.
I cannot either.
Here we are. Is
Because
there
being on
anyone opposed?
telephone, so if you're gonna need to respond verbally as well as visually on the votes, I think, to be sure that we see you.
Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, then the motion carries and the treasurer's report will be amended as such. Now, a motion to accept the treasurer's report as a whole.
One more thing, John. I wonder if on those dues, if maybe there should be a sub item as prepaid dues and postpaid dues so that numbers can match up with actual.
Well,
people.
Bonnie
They never will.
tracks, so if people pay for next year, she's already got that in her accounting of members. And we're taking in the money, so I track it as dues when it comes in and it's deposited in the bank. And some of these are prior dues too, that people realize they haven't paid in 2 or 3 years, so they'll send in money for 2 or 3 years worth.
Yeah, I understand where it's coming from. I'm just saying it's hard for anybody else to double check on that. I didn't know if just because you have so many members, if the current dues and postpaid dues and prepaid dues should be like separate subheadings under
That's
dues.
going to be a lot of tracking to do because some people will also say, I'll call them and say, well, you've paid too much. And they'll say, well, then use that as a donation. So they don't care. So I'm going to do a lot of tracking that way too. In addition, I mean, sometimes I just can't make it. I mean, we don't let them pay for 10 years out because that's just ridiculous. So, some people want to pay if they say, oh my gosh, I haven't paid for 2 years back. I want to pay. And I'm like, it's not required. And they're like, I want to pay. I mean, it's $20. So they say, I want to be a good steward of the breed. I want to pay. So I'm not arguing they want to pay. And some people say, I want to pay a year ahead as well. Well, I can do a year ahead. That's not a problem. And then some people say, here's a donation. Now people can say, well, I want to pay a donation to for Ray Clark Memorial Fund. So they'll do that. I have a place to put that. But a donation, I write in my ledger, I just write donation. And then when I do my report, I hand that to John and say, I've got a whatever, $100 donation from X member. I don't have a category to put that in, but John does when he does his report to the membership. I track it, but I don't have a place in the database to put that. But I do a lot of hand paper work.
Maybe we should do that.
It's going to be a lot of extra work for me. I volunteer. I mean, I'll do what's the pleasure of the board, but
let me just caution a little bit here. And this is why I mentioned this earlier. Under the IRS rules, a 501c5 is not really supposed to take donations. You need to be a 501c3 for that. So if you look historically, we have not had much money in donations, and I want to avoid that. We did have the 1,500 in there last year, but that was a specific grant to fund work on a website from the RE Synergy Foundation. So it wasn't really a donation, it was a targeted grant, if you will.
Right.
So I want to keep the donations to a minimum in case there's an IRS audit. We're not really supposed to be receiving a lot of donations, so.
My understanding on the donations front, for organizations such as this, is that you can have donations, but the people that are giving the donations will not be able to use it as a write-off if you're not a 501c3
Yeah,
corporation.
right.
But a five, I used to be president of a 501c7 board association, and you can take donations in all you want. It's just that there's no benefit to the people giving the donations.
Good to know that.
John, if I may, I'm going to move to accept the amended treasurer's report.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Further discussions? Let me just say that I'll take the comments under advisement and we'll see if we can track like going forward, future dues, past dues, and give a little more detail on where those dues are originating. I wouldn't want to go back and rehash this past year to try to figure that out at this point. Any other comments? There's a motion and a second to approve the treasurer's report as amended. Any other comments or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no or raise your hand. Okay, let's move on. The next item is still part of the treasurer's report, but it's just a report of our CD analysis from the bank. We have 3 CDs, as we've had for years, deposited at Essex Savings Bank. If we can get that report up on the screen, Bruce.
Yeah, I'm fighting with it now. I'll be right with you.
Yep.
Well, hopefully you can see it now, John.
Thank you, Bruce. It can. So you'll see the 3 CDs listed as 1, 2, and 3. You'll see when they were historically open in 07, 09, and 2014. Each one was initially funded with $5,000. You can see the current interest rates. They're up significantly from what they've been in the prior years. You'll see the current maturity dates when they're up for renewal. They're all in 9 months right at the moment because that's the highest yielding category. The interest from 2024 is reported there. Total interest for 2024 was $511.01. And the total value as of the end of 2024 is $17,482.55. Any comments? I don't believe we need to approve. This is just information that comes right directly on the bank statement at the end of the year. But any comments on the CDs? Okay, hearing none. Let's move on to committee reports. Let's start with genetics. Steve, you're on genetics committee.
Oh, okay. The big topic for the genetics is DNA typing of our Devons. And for a little history, back in 2017 at the annual meeting, Shannon Rice Nichols and I suggested DNA typing to help keep the breed as unique as possible, because it was, again, being a veterinarian, I'm used to seeing DNA related problems, genetic problems, diseases, and the tools now for DNA typing have really, prices come way down, and we can use that to solve some of the problems that this organization continues to have. And if you look back in any of the minutes, and I now have the luxury of looking back at the board minutes of the monthly meetings. And let me just say, Jeremy brought up a really good question when we were discussing, the board was discussing DNA, is what are we trying to fix? And it's a good point, because I'm definitely a believer in the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. And it's like, yes, what are we trying to fix by DNA typing? Well, the problem that keeps surfacing frequently, and our registrar and John will attest to this, is this board continues to have problems having to field questions on difficult registrations. And if this organization, like many others, required parent verification, DNA typing for registration purposes, those problems would have been all gone by this time. Because this first came up 8 years ago. And back in, was 2019, I believe. Yes, in October 2019, we did have a policy that was brought up that from now on, for some of these difficult registrations, that folks could submit. It was up to them, their expense to do it, to verify the lineage of these animals using DNA. So our organization then technically already recognizes the use of DNA for these difficult registrations. But I don't think these difficult registrations are going to go away. They haven't. And maybe Bonnie and John, especially Bonnie. Bonnie's in the trenches of this thing. She knows better than anyone what difficulties there are with some of these registrations. And so I'm trying to convince the board and the membership that DNA typing is something that we should do. And there are different ways to do it. We can copy what other organizations have done. And bottom line is, for probably the cost of a round bale of hay, you can DNA type an animal that not only would give you parentage verification, but there are some markers for especially the dairy side of things. We can also have A2 determined at that point in time with those same amount of monies. And according to Neogen, they'll even do the BVD PI3 test, which if anybody shows animals, I think it's required now. I know it's required in New York State, as far as having those animals go to those shows. But it is going to cost money. And then there's discussions about, okay, if we do it, who owns that information? Is it the membership? Is it the board? Is it the organization? Is it the individual? These are all questions that have to be answered. And what are some of the costs involved for parental verification, going to be around $20. For A2, and these are just separate, that would be another probably $40 at UC Davis. And the milk proteins, for those who are interested in milk or cheese production, that could add probably another $40 to the test. But again, now I've been just in contact with Neogen. They seem to be the folks who have the best technology at this point. And for all those answers, it's probably going to run the organization around $50 instead of the $250 if you were to do those tests separately. I think as far as the registry goes, just the parental verification would be more than sufficient. But remember, we can't go backwards. DNA typing isn't going to find ancestors, that came over with pilgrims. That's just not. Well, actually, it might be possible with mitochondrial DNA, but that's a whole different discussion, a whole different technology. We won't go there at this point.
So Steve, let's if we can hold this, you see on the agenda, I want to have a huge discussion once we adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
That I want you to lead. So before we get too far in the weeds here.
Yeah.
I appreciate your comments, but let's get to some of that later.
Okay.
So we can get through the other reports.
Okay. So anyway, yes, that's what we're trying to propose, and the membership will have to vote on whether we can move forward on that.
Right. Okay. Let's go to the registrar's report. Bonnie.
Okay.
Bruce will put that up, I think.
Yeah, I'm digging for it.
Okay, so in 2024, there were 219 registrations, of which those were 162 were females, 57 were males, 125 were under 1 year, 27 were 1 year but less than 2 years, 9 were 2 years but less than 3 years, 1 was 3 years but less than 5 years, and there were 182 transfers. 10 were lost certificates. Of the semen sold, there were a total of 13. 5 were from were Herc, and 8 were from Axel. That is the 2024 registrar report. And then I have a membership report. Are there any questions on the registrar report? And I can't see anybody, so you'd have to just ask. No?
Well, yeah, I have a question then. With the Livestock Conservancy, does that 219 registrations put us over the critically endangered?
That's a good number. Consistent.
If I may, they've reached out to me before when I was secretary and asked me for those numbers, and they're the ones that make those decisions. And from what I've taken from their requests, they're looking for a long-term trend.
Consistent
so if you go over
trend,
those
yep.
numbers, for 1 or 2 years, they're not too interested in it. But if we go over those numbers consistently for some time period, they may change their designation. But that would be entirely up to them.
Do you have a rough idea as to how long we have to be on that 200 plus Mark? Did they give you any indication, Andrew?
No, they didn't.
Okay. Thank you.
And just so you know, when I do this report, it looks like out of those 219, 182 were transferred, but that's not true. That's in that year period, there were 182 animals that were transferred. So it's not all the new ones that were registered that were then transferred.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions on that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I have my membership report.
Bonnie, Bonnie,
yes.
before you do that, I have a chat screen and there's a couple of DNA questions. I
Okay.
just want to repeat that, according to John, at the end of this meeting, there'll be an open forum for DNA conversation again. So if you're in the chat room listening, just hold those DNA questions until later on and we'll address them. Thank you. Bonnie, I'll pick up the other form in just a moment.
Okay, thank you, Bruce.
I hope. And Bonnie, I'm looking for the membership report. Is that correct?
Yes.
I hate technology.
There you are. Great. So in 2024, we had 92 members. And of those 92 members, 3 are lifetime members. We had 1 pass away. We had 4 lifetime members. There are 4 junior members, so that's encouraging. And we have 2 associate members. And that's encouraging because those 6 will become hopefully full-time members when they age up to 18. Is there?
I think there's a typo on the screen that Bruce has up because the report I have in front of me, which you generated here, says 4 junior. You just read 4 junior, but it's showing 2.
Oh, yes, it is. Yep. I have 4 junior members, so I don't know how I did that. I'm sorry.
No problem, Bonnie. I'll amend that after the meeting. That will be 4 junior members, right?
Yes, 4 junior members and 2 associate members.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Question.
Yes.
What's the deal with lifetime membership? How do you become a lifetime member?
It's awarded by the board of directors to someone who has spent most of a lifetime devoting all they could to the association. So I can go through the lifetime members if you'd like to know who they are.
Sure.
The one who passed was Ray Clark. I think that goes without saying why he's a lifetime member. One of them is with us today, Susan Randall, who spent years and years as registrar and did a lot for this association in its infancy. One is John Wheelock, who up until 2 years ago had attended every annual meeting for 45 years consecutively.
Right.
Was one of the founders of the organization. And I believe the other one, Bonnie, is Lawrence.
Is Bill Blakelock. He passed away.
And Bill passed away. So we've actually had 2 that passed away.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. So those are the lifetime members.
Cool.
Associate members are people who join but do not own cattle, and they do not have the right to vote, but they wanted to join and support the organization. And junior members obviously are members under 18 years old that do own cattle. Any other questions on membership?
So the total number of members with cattle is what, please?
92 full-time and 4 juniors.
Yes.
And then the lifetimes, out of the lifetimes, I believe all 3 still own cattle. So you're going to have 99 total members who own cattle.
Very good. Thank you.
Other questions on members? Okay, let's move on to communications. Andrew, this is your subcommittee.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to start off and thank Lawrence Gilley for his many years of being the webmaster. We greatly appreciate it, and the website has always been a big resource for the association. And with that, I'd like to thank Dale Frere for taking that role over. I know it's been a tremendous amount of work to get the new website up and rolling. And third, I'd like to thank Tom Slater, who did an outstanding job as the newsletter editor. He has stepped down, and nobody wants to follow in his footsteps at the moment. So we're going to have the website take the place of the newsletter. If you, the new website's URL is amdca.com. If you scroll to the bottom of that, you'll see several screens that rotate, and any notices will be placed there going forward for the time being anyhow. And that'll be our main source of communication. Also, I wanted to remind everybody on the website, we recently took down the registrations and transfers for technical issues, and maybe we can get into that later. But if you go one step down under membership services, there is paper forms, and we don't have any intentions of taking those down, so you'll always be able to do that the old school way. And membership applications do remain, so you can do those online, and they seem to be a big success so far. Let me go down through my list real quick. I think that's all that I had, actually. Does anybody have any questions or suggestions for the website? In Dale's absence, I'd be happy to hear that and forward that to him.
Andrew, I've got one. In one of the discussions about the credit card payments, do you know if the credit card service fee is charged for each individual transaction? Say you're registering or transferring a number of animals. Do you know if that was, or did I mishear it? It was.
I don't quote me. I will say I do not know for certain, but I believe that there is a small fee per transaction, and then there's a percentage fee.
Okay.
But again, that would be a better question for Dale, unfortunately.
Okay. No, thanks. Thanks for trying.
Anyone else?
I think this might be a good time, Andrew, to field questions on the or talk about the website and why we took down some things in Dale's absence. You're as familiar as anyone with that, so maybe you just want to elaborate. You said a little later on. Well, I think now's the time.
So, doing registrations and transfers online is a great way to submit the application and the fees. However, you still are required to submit the certificate to Bonnie for the transfer to actually go through. And it's my understanding a number of people were not following through with that. That's going to cause more headaches because people would be of the opinion that they did transfer the animal when they actually have not completed it. We had text up explaining that, but it still was not being followed. And so to head off more future problems, we decided last month to take that down until we can sort it out. So again, membership applications remain, but the transfers and cattle registrations have to be done manually, the old school paper route at this time. And I would ask if anybody's got a solution to that. I think the board would be open to hearing.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Is that because logically it's the only way to actually have paper copies and manually do it, or is there just not a technical solution?
Well, we've always required a signed, as proof that the current registered owner wants to transfer the animal, and I think that that's a good policy to have. And like I said, we had text up explaining that that was the final step, but people just weren't complying with it.
Is there, Andrew, is there a way that we could do e-signature that maybe take care of that?
The original has to come back to me.
Right.
There can't be two out there.
I understand that.
Yeah.
This is Sam Peck. I understand that, Bonnie. But if we had an e-signature on that transfer, that would allow the process on your end to go faster per se, and we just got to wait for snail mail to get the hard copy to you.
Well,
Yeah, but not
that's the
until I
whole-
get, sorry, Andrew.
No, you'd be better to speak to that, but that's the problem is that people aren't complying with the snail mail function of that. It's not the e-signature, I guess, wouldn't, in my mind, wouldn't fix the problem.
No.
They're doing the online portion, but
Right.
the
Okay.
following
Okay.
step is to submit the actual hard copy, and if they never do that, then that transfer sits in limbo on Bonnie's desk.
Well-
And the very real fear is that sometime down the road, and it's unfortunate, but as a director, I can tell you that it could be 6 months or it could be 10 years from now, somebody's going to pop up and want to register cattle out of that cow, and they're not the registered owner of it because somebody in the past didn't follow through.
Right. Right. I understand that. Okay. I think an e-signature thing would help to move things along, but then members need to follow the rules.
Right. And the rule is until that original with the raised seal comes back to the registrar, it doesn't matter who the registrar is, but that is the association policy. Until the original comes back to the registrar with all the information of who the new owner is, just like when you all received your new certificate, it had
Right.
your name as the owner. So I have to take out who the old owner, the seller is, put in the new owner's name, and then send it to you along if you're a new owner with a welcome letter and tell you that this is a document that you need to keep in a safe place because it costs $25 if it should be lost.
In my mind, the only way an e-signature would work is if the registrar accepted that as the signed certificate, and that would be a very bad policy because you still have somebody out there with the original registration
Right.
in their hand.
Exactly. And a lot of people are not aware that each animal has its own file. I don't know if y'all can see this. Every registration, besides what's in the computer, has its own hard copy, and it goes into a book, which goes into a fireproof safe. So I need to have that hard copy. And each animal, some of these folders are very thick if that animal gets transferred a lot. Some are very thin. One piece of paper for its whole life. Stays on the farm, dies on the farm.
Right.
But some are very, very transferred a lot, very thick.
Okay.
Yeah.
This works very similar to everyone's familiar with how the DMV works with a title to a motor vehicle.
Yeah.
These are the title to the animal.
Yes.
It's a legal document that gives ownership to it. We've had a number of problems with divorces, family contested inheritances, whatever. But we have to stick to our guns, and those documents are just like a motor vehicle title.
The page that Bonnie showed you, the sleeve with the original application, when an animal is sold to a new owner, the old registration comes back to Bonnie and it goes in that sleeve. If that animal is sold, say 6 times, there are 6 old certificates of registration in that sleeve. And you should be able with those to track all the owners that animal went through. If she doesn't get that paper back when the animal is transferred,
Right.
that means there's 2 originals out there, which makes it more liable that somebody's going to slap the same tattoo on a new animal and claim that they've got the one that was sold.
And that's why if you lose a certificate, that's why we charge you $25. And your new, if you should find it, and I've already issued you a duplicate copy, that makes your original one null and void, and you will have it say duplicate copy on it with a big stamp on it going forward. And whoever, if you sell that animal, it will always say that on that certificate. It will be a duplicate copy for that animal's, the rest of that animal's life. So It's a big deal.
Yep.
We don't perpetuate any fraud for any owner. We take it seriously, just like John said, like a DMV. That is your animal, and we take great responsibility with that. Whether you sell it or you keep it on your farm, if you're selling it, you're getting good money for that animal. So we take holding these records very seriously for you.
And that's why you're not supposed to give the paperwork to the new owner.
Thank you,
It's why
Sue.
the seller is responsible, because we know who had the cow or the bull. And you're the person that we'd go back to if there's an issue. That's why we want the paperwork coming from the seller.
Thank you, Sue.
Okay, back to the website. Any other comments or suggestions? Okay, let's move on. Andrew, I'm going to call you again for election results. We have 2 director seats that are open at this
Yes,
point. The ballots went out, and I believe you have the return ballots.
I do. Like John said, there was 2 seats open. We had 2 incumbents run, John Hall and Steve Burton. At the time of the deadline for membership, I sent out 66 ballots. We received a total of 29 back, and the results are 29 votes for John Hall and 24 votes for Steve Burton. And so they will both be elected for another term of 3 years.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Let's move on. New business, scholarship. Bruce, I think you've been heading up a scholarship subcommittee.
I have. Thank you for the help of John Matten out of Whitewood Junction, Vermont, and Patty Howell down in Virginia. I knew John was on a moment ago. There you are, John. And then Patty, I think she was on by telephone. They both knew Ray quite well, and I think that was helpful to figure the best way to honor the tremendous amount of work Ray did for the association and for the membership. I think all of us know that Ray was always available by telephone, and once you got on the phone with him, you want to be prepared for a little long conversation because he was not one to rush you off, and I appreciate that. The directors set up the Ray Memorial Award. It's really not a scholarship, it's a memorial award in order to recognize a young person or a person that was going to carry on with the breed and that we thought Ray would feel good about. We had a number of applications to look over and read, and Patty and John both were very strong, and I agree with them that Ian Minor out of Vermont was a young man that grew up with cattle, spoke very well and very passionate on his application form of how he appreciated the value of the breed and he wanted to be involved with it. And he's going on to Cobra Skills and wanted some assistance with helping paying tuition for that. And so we feel he should be the recipient of that award. I don't know, John or Patty, if you want to add anything to that. If not, that's our recommendation.
Very nice.
Congratulations, Dan.
Yes, congratulations.
Ian is my son, and I appreciate your guys' consideration for that.
Okay, congratulations, Derek.
Remember him when he was little coming to the annual meeting with you. That's really awesome. Congratulations. Can't believe he's in college now. We're going. Wow.
Yeah, he's growing up.
Wow. We're old.
Okay, moving along, the bylaws. We were charged with reviewing the bylaws as a board at last year's annual meeting. And Bruce, if you want to put those up next.
And as always, give me a moment. Hang on a moment, please. back with you folks. Appreciate the interruption. Now, come on, where'd we go here? We had a moment disconnected here for a moment. Okay, here we are. It should be on the screen now, John, if I'm still hooked up.
You're highlighted by laws. I haven't seen them up
Yep.
yet.
And should be on right now, no?
Yeah.
Not yet.
And then scrolling down.
No, they're not on yet, Bruce.
Okay, that's interesting. It says I'm
You're on the
screen
screen of annual meeting presentations, which list minutes membership.
okay, for some reason, okay, I got to back up. Bear with me, fellas, take a coffee break. Does it show up now, John?
No, we're still on the
Okay.
on your screen that has the list of
This is where my
items
kids
to display.
react. Okay, we're going to do it again because I keep seeing it.
Here we go.
There it is.
Got it there?
Yep,
Okay.
you got it.
Okay, we've got American Devon Association bylaws, and that's all on the website. There's no changes there, but if we scroll down, and I can slow down if you want, but under membership meetings, section 4, meeting notice. It says notices will be mailed by the secretary, both because postage is not cheap anymore, and quite frankly, email is quite efficient for those members who have email accounts. We are proposing that notices and minutes and so forth can be distributed by US mail or electronic mail. Those without electronic mail would continue to get US mail, as I understand it, and those of you folks that have email, you'd get it through email. John, is that a good summary of the change?
Yeah, that's the change that we're proposing as a board. As Bruce already said, it calls us to mail this stuff out in mail, and mail can be interpreted as US mail, electronic mail, whatever. We just wanted to clarify in here that it shall be US mail and or electronic. And as Bruce said, set up with email would still get regular US Postal Service mail of notifications. Any comments or corrections or suggestions on that change? Bruce? That's the only change we recommended, is it not?
That's my understanding, John. And you're getting some background noise, at least from my hearing aids. I'm not sure other people.
Okay, so I have one. Okay, so I have one change proposed to the bylaws. If there's no discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the change.
John, since I proposed it, I'll go ahead and move the motion, if you will.
Okay, is there a second to the motion to approve the change?
I'll second it. Andrew.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
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 Those opposed, say no or raise your hand. Okay, hearing none, I say the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is a fall gathering. This board, since I became president, has instituted fall gatherings or spring gatherings. I think very early on in introductions, Ryan said that he participated in a fall gathering back in 2011 in Missouri, where Bonnie and I and Sue Randall went out there. It was a great gathering organized by Joe Janowski. We've had several before and several since in various settings in conjunction with other things and so on. We're always looking to get out to different areas of the country and meet with folks. So we're looking for volunteers to host a gathering. And a gathering can be as simple as a morning program where we could do a little PowerPoint or just talk and field questions, maybe look at some cattle. We've done some in conjunction with the Virginia State Fair where people from that area could attend the fair, look at the cattle, and then have meetings with the directors who could attend. The directors pretty much all attend on their own dime. The travel and everything is on us. We're looking to get out there and continue to get out there in person besides more of these electronic gatherings. So anyone who has interest, please contact any one of the directors and let us know that you're thinking about it. We can give you some ideas on how to organize it. We've had gatherings where a number of folks that have Devons invite potential Devon owners to come and hear more about the breed. So we're looking, obviously to get out there and do more of that work. We've done, like it said in the minutes last year, we've done North Carolina a few times. We've done Western New York. We've done Pennsylvania. We've done Virginia. Missouri. Besides Bonnie and I traveling across the country, we've visited breeders in South Dakota and Colorado and all over the place, Utah. So any comments or suggestions about a fall gathering, spring gathering? We'd prefer not to travel in the wintertime or high summer when most of us that have farms are producing hay and pretty tied down to the farm. With that, we're at the end of the agenda. I want to adjourn the meeting and go into an in-depth discussion on DNA. I don't think the board is ready to accept any motions on DNA. We want to get the discussion out there and take all this conversation under advisement, and then maybe proceed to another meeting where we have motions on how the board and the membership should proceed. So having said that, are there any other things that need to come before the meeting? If not, I'll entertain a motion to
John,
adjourn.
I don't want to embarrass Bonnie, but I do want to note that she's had some challenges this year. I guess we could say it that way. And I want to thank the registrar for staying with the paperwork and the record keeping and all the bookkeeping that I personally hate. And she was able to do that in amongst all the challenges she had. And that should be recognized today, I think. Bonnie, thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For those of you who don't know, Bonnie is struggling with losing the sight in one eye. It's very limited. It's been a challenge. There's been 6 major surgeries that require at times 2 months of total rest, laying prone. So apologize. Some of your registrations have had to sit on the desk for a little bit. But health is pretty important in the short life that we have. So unless anything else is of importance, I would entertain a motion to adjourn and then take up the DNA discussion.
John, I was wondering why we would have to adjourn and we can't just take up the DNA conversation on other business or something and then do any business related to it at a different time when you want to vote.
The board is not ready to entertain motions at this point on DNA. We want to have the discussion, hear what our members think, and then we'll have further discussion amongst ourselves. And like I said, and then we'll bring it back to the membership again. I just think it would be premature to take any action on it today.
Right. I don't think you need to take any action during a meeting. I just want to make sure that all the members are involved and can see it in any meeting minutes in the future.
Yeah, I'm not trying to hide anything. I just want to drop the meeting in case anyone wants to get off that doesn't want to be part of it. We can certainly record what happens.
This is Judy. Just so you know, that's all you need to do. Those that want to leave, there should be a red button in one corner of your screen that says leave, and you click leave and you're gone. Okay, we won't be shutting the meeting down. But then the recording it's being recorded right now, and the recording can continue if that's what you would like to have happen. so that the discussion will be recorded if anybody else wants to see it at any time in the future.
I would, being involved with meetings like this before and other associations that I belong to, we should set a time date for any future meetings to discuss this, so we don't keep laying it on the table for 20 years. Just my thought. I think we need to kind of get this going where we can. I mean, we're all here to save the breed, and I think that's what we need to do. And DNA is the one way to save the breed.
I'll just make a comment. I appreciate your position, Sam. I appreciate other positions on this board. There are people that are diametrically opposed to each other in the positions that they have.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that.
I am certainly interested in preserving the breed probably as much as anybody on here, and I think I've done a little bit of work on that in the last 40 years.
That is true.
And I am trying to prevent division in this association. I have seen division in prior Devon associations. I don't want that. That's why I think we have an intelligent discussion today and we take action in the future. I am committed to taking action on this, just not today. I don't want to entertain any motions today that are knee-jerk reactions to get us into something that will some people regret later or cause division in the association. I think the more discussion we have and the more facts that are out there, the healthier it'll be for this organization going forward. That's what I'm interested in.
Sounds good.
That's why I wanted to adjourn this meeting, have the general discussion. It's being recorded. Anybody can play it later. We're not hiding anything. We're not avoiding anything, but I think it's the way forward for the best of the organization.
John, may I ask a question?
Yeah.
When the board has its monthly meetings, those minutes are for anybody can read the minutes. Is that correct or not? Okay.
Should be.
Posted, yeah. Yep.
So if you would like a motion to adjourn the meeting and have discussion, I would make that motion.
Is there a second?
John, I think it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen the other. I trust your judgment on it, John. I think it's time for free flow of discussion. I second Bonnie's motion to move forward.
Okay, a motion to adjourn has been made and seconded.
Can I just clarify that the discussion would be included in the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
That was my only
I
concern.
just wanted to clarify that.
Yes.
My only concern was that I generally only receive the annual minutes. So if anybody else out there ever wanted to see it and they just got the annual minutes, they wouldn't be seeing it if you adjourned this meeting. So I don't know why it wouldn't just fall under this meeting anyway, if it's going to be in the minutes of this meeting. Do you understand what I mean by that?
I understand your point. I want to make it as an addendum. I really don't want to have the meeting continue and have to entertain or decline motions. I don't think we're ready for that. I think this is just a general discussion. The board of directors will meet, take all this under advisement. We'll come back to the membership, like I said before. I'm being redundant at this point. So the motion is on the table to adjourn. I'll entertain the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Okay, Steve, I'm going to turn this discussion over to you. Thank you.
Can I just say something? Because I have another meeting I have to go to, and I don't want to miss this conversation. So I'm going to come back and listen to it. But I just want to say something before I go. Is that okay, Steve?
Oh, yeah. No,
and then you can talk about it as you will. But just from my 2 cents on this.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that you mentioned all the other fees that will be incurred, and I didn't know how much a bale of hay costs, because I guess it's different around the country, right? Plus it was $40 for A2A2 and $40 for milk proteins. But I wanted just to let everybody know from registrar point of view that it's very difficult to get people to pay $20 just for their dues, and then for $5 to register an animal. And that's why we're in sometimes the pickle that we're in, because some people don't want to register their animal. So that's why the board a number of years ago put the cap on that you can't remember your who the daddy was or who the mama was up to 5 years back. And I understand the DNA part of that, but they don't want to pay those fees as small as they are now. So I don't see how you're going to get, or how the board would get people to pay that kind of fee, which is a lot more money, which is a guarantee of who the daddy is, who the mommy is. I get all of that with DNA. I'm just struggling at this point until you all can show me how you're going to get someone who has a whole beautiful herd right now, but has not even $5 to pay for each animal to get registered. That's my only thought and my only question with the members that are struggling with not much money now. So guarantee of who the parentage is isn't going to help them. They might know who it is, but they don't have the money. So that was my thoughts.
And just to respond to that comment, that is a very common concern. And those organizations that have instituted the DNA typing have all seen a return on their investment higher for DNA typed animals versus untyped. So it may sound
a broad-based statement that I'd like to see the factual data that all organizations that have implemented that have seen a return on their investment. It seems a little too stereotyped to be completely true. Maybe some organizations have, but then they probably also lost good herds and good farms because of making the change.
Again, I'm just commenting on what Bonnie is talking about. We can cover all this through the whole general discussion, because
I'm sorry to drop that bomb. I just wanted to put that out there, and I'll look forward to hearing what you all have to say. But I have another meeting, so I apologize. But I thank you all so much.
Yep.
All right.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Bye, everybody.
Yep. Okay. So, first of all, I guess it's a matter of, any questions on what DNA is and what DNA typing will do. I mean, it is the one and only exact ID. When we're talking about the different things we have to do for permanent identification of our animals, the tattoos, the microchips, the RFID tags. I can probably alter all of them except the RFID tags. Yeah, the RFID tags are easily lost. So we don't have a permanent identification. DNA, no two animals or living things. Well, let me rephrase that. No two people, no two animals, mammals, have identical DNA except exact twins. And even some of those, sometimes that doesn't follow through. So, but the point being is, if you're looking for a system, we were just having a discussion over the registration and all the problems with the having to return the registration certificate, having the owners, the sellers return the certificates. All of this goes away if you have animals that are DNA typed, and they're all on record as being DNA typed. And let's just say, just for sake of discussion, Howard, I'm going to pick on you because I know you. So, Howard, I'm going to sell you a bull, and because I now am DNA typing, I know the DNA of that bull, and if I do it, which we have to decide, in the initial case, let's just say for sake of argument that I went and I DNA typed and verified sire and dam of that bull calf I just sold you. That all gets sent to the registrar from the folks who are doing the DNA typing. That animal, you sell that animal to Sam. I'm going to pick on you. You sell Sam that bull calf. Sam sends in a hair sample from this bull to confirm that what you're selling him truly is what it's supposed to be. Bingo. It's either that animal or it isn't. There's no questions. And at that point, think about it. How critical are those certificates of registration? How critical is it that we have to send those back? You've got proof positive that that animal is that animal. The only thing you probably should do is what was mentioned as an e-signature, is that a bill of sale with an e-signature that's put in again, it's all digital, passes through, and there is no more of this paperwork shuffle. And one of the things we struggle with as a board, and Bonnie's right. I mean, we have enough trouble getting dues paid and registration fees paid. But we also, as stewards of this great breed of cattle, we have a responsibility to keep the genetics true. And I'm not saying that, well, according to his name escapes me at the moment, president of the American Shorthorn Association. They've determined between them, Angus, Herefords, that most breed registries, there are between 12 and 15% of the animals registered have erroneous information. And it's not the registrar's fault. It is not the cattle person's fault. It's just innocent things that have happened. For instance, and I can speak from experience on this, we had over 30 calves last year, and how I would match up moms and babies was at weaning time previously. Obviously, if that calf is suckling off of that mom, that should be its mom, correct? Well, we ran into a situation where we had one cow and she had 3 calves nursing off of her. These Devons have great maternal instincts. And it's not uncommon now, we understand, that you can have a calf that, well, either mom steals it or baby steals the mom. I'm not sure how that all happens. But I could have innocently been registering that calf with the wrong dam. Not that I'm trying to be malicious or anything. That's just how it happens. The other thing is, and I'm sure there's nobody here that can ever had this problem where, when we get around to castrating those calves, yeah, we'll get it done. We'll get it done. Sure enough. And then you've got some cows that come in and they're confirmed pregnant. Now, how many times does you don't have a bull and somebody's pregnant, and it turns out that one of your bull calves, yeah, he was old enough to breed. He was able to figure out how to get it done. Again, you can't be out there 24/7. You weren't maliciously trying to increase the value of a cow because it was bred to some other bull. Mistakes happen. And if you're in a position where you're trying really hard to make sure you're not, you're reducing whatever potential inbreeding there is, and you're trying to, or on the other side, you have some specific traits you want to see more fully developed in your animals, you might want to go beyond just parental verification. And the labs that are out there, be UC Davis or Neogen, they all have all kinds of profiles that you can, these EPDs for these beef animals, that just blows my mind. Where you can basically have statistics that you can use to figure out what your chances of improving your herd are and what to avoid as well. So anyway, as far as the DNA typing for parental verification, this
just hold on.
Okay.
We're good to go.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
so anyway, just from, I never was aware before I was on this board of all the issues that poor Bonnie has to put up with and the phone calls because of paperwork issues. The DNA is typing. If we had started it 5 years ago, we'd be able to register these animals that were over 5 years of age. Because again, you've got the DNA typing, you can figure out who the bulls are, you can figure out who the mamas are. It's a fingerprint. It's an exact fingerprint. So the folks who are saying, gee, it's awful expensive, well, I guess on the backside of that, it's going to be awful expensive making some breeding mistakes. And, for trying to keep this breed as pure as possible, there is no better way that I know of than doing the DNA typing. So that's just from the paperwork standpoint and the registrar. Yes, and as far as talking about the cost involved in making broad statements about seeing more monies on the other end, is there any doubt that in this organization you can sell an animal, a registered animal, for more than a grade Devon? And by grade, I mean just any Devon looking animal that is a Devon but has no paperwork to support it. That I hope doesn't require too much brain power to figure out, registered animals are worth more than grade animals. So by validifying our stance on the breed and the purity by DNA typing, and it's easy. For instance, we were talking about the cost right now to genotype or DNA type a calf for parental verification. For the calf, it's going to be about $20. And now, if you will need to have DNA typing on mom and the bull. Now the bull, you DNA type him, and depending on how many head you've got, I mean, we're breeding 60 cows here. So I mean that $20 is pennies for each calf by the time we're done, and we keep them for 2, possibly 3 years. So that's just a one-time test form.
Steve, I hate to interrupt, but I wanted to let you know there's some hand raises going on that people have questions by the looks.
Yeah.
So
Oh, okay. I don't see those. So yeah.
I just I would love the floor as a rebut when you are all finished. I think you guys probably know from some of my Facebook posts that I'm pretty opposed to DNA testing, and I have a number of reasons that I'd like to share. And I definitely want to listen and hear your point of view, Steve. And I appreciate, what you're bringing to the table. But just your comment about how this is pennies, like that for my farm, this would be prohibitive. I can tell you that it would increase my bottom line to a point where I would not be registering my animals. And I have an incredible bull, and I think I have some great calves, and I want to continue to support the breed. But when we're starting to talk about this, I think that that's prohibitive. When you talk about even $20 per calf, if I have 10 calves, that's $200 plus I need to register or not register, but DNA all of my animals. And that's just going to exponentially grow as you have more and more. So to me, that is prohibitive. I have some other concerns just about the DNA typing in general. Who owns that data? Number one, I think that is a huge concern. I don't like testing my animals for anything. And I think that that's fine if you do, but I do not want, for example, I don't love the idea that raw milk might be legalized in certain areas because I do not want the testing associated with that. I don't want to have to send off a PCR test to some government run organization and then they can test for whatever they want. So that's one example where I just don't want Big Brother, so to speak, knowing my information. I don't think personally, and I understand this sounds totally wild, but I don't trust the government enough to mine that data and say, oh, you have cows. Oh, you have cows with a certain type of genetics. I'm just going down the line of like possible unintended consequences, because once we open up that opportunity where somebody else can see our data, possibly owns that data, then there's nothing to say that in 20 years, the world might look a lot different and we might be setting ourselves up for a lot of intrusion. And so I'm really opposed to DNA testing my animals from that perspective. I don't want anybody on my farm to come and inspect or do anything like that either. So that's one. I've already addressed some of the cost, but I think that is also a slippery slope. I don't test my animals for A2A2. It's so funny because initially I was on the A2A2 train and I thought, oh man, this is great. And then actually, I think it was Ryan said something about A2A2 and got me down the rabbit hole. And now I'm like, I don't care about A2. In fact, I think when we are selecting, sometimes I think what happens is when we get so in the weeds about DNA genotype, we stop looking at the phenotype of our animals. And so I would rather look at the phenotype of my animal, and I don't need to know the genotype. Do they make good cheese? Great. Can I tolerate the milk? Great. I think that A2, for example, and I'm not trying to go down a tangent of this, but this is a good example of using DNA to try to market. And what's happened, if you look at the Jersey associations, is that they basically only, they are selecting for A2 cows over anything else. That's what's on their semen registries when you can buy semen. And I don't like that because I wonder what we're prioritizing over other qualities. And so, it's up to each individual, obviously, to choose how they want to breed their animals. But I think it's a slippery slope when we start to say we must do DNA typing, because I think some individuals, can really utilize those genotypes over really looking at the phenotype of the animal. I also think it's a slippery slope when we talk about who can be registered and who can't. I know about DNA testing, but then also inspections. And I think that this is just the first step in going down that direction, which I'm really against, again, because we don't have the infrastructure as, at least what it appears. I'm admittedly very new to this association. I've been in other large associations like the AQHA for quarter horses. I'm a member of the Berkshire Association for pigs, but I don't think that we have the infrastructure to support inspections. And so I just do not want to go down the slippery slope of that.
Can
Uh,
I intercede on that one?
can you mind if I finish?
Yeah, I will.
Because I know that we're also very much opposed on this, but
No.
So I also want to comment on, having animals that are worth more because they're registered. And I think that that's totally appropriate, but make it not mandatory. If you guys really want this, that is fine by me, but don't make it mandatory. Don't make it so that I have to do this for my animals in order to register them, because I'm opposed on multiple levels. But the largest thing is, one of the larger things is financial and where this is going. And I don't want to be a part of that. I don't think that that's appropriate for everybody. And the other thing is, a lot of the issues that you've mentioned so far, right? Making sure that each animal has the same parentage that you think it does. I totally understand that, but yet this is a breed that has lasted hundreds of years without this technology. And I think that I'm personally willing to accept some level of error. I just really think that we open up a lot of issues as we try to get more technologically advanced. And the more that I do my research, the more I want to go back to the old way of things. And that's actually why these cows were really appealing to me, is that I wanted a heritage animal that could stand the test of time, that hadn't been as industrialized and impacted. And I think that we're ushering in a lot of very modern technologies that I don't think have the intended consequences that we want them to have. I always look at, what are the intended consequences? Does it do what I actually want? And yeah, you're going to know the DNA of your animal, but do I really need it? For my farm, we don't. We definitely know who is the mama and who is the papa, and they have long lines of lineage, and I can look at all of their registrations. We castrate on day 2. So, many people don't do that, but that's just what works for our farm. And so I think, there's a certain level of, I'm okay doing the old ways of doing things. And I think that's what's appealing to this organization for me. And I'd like to keep it that way. So I'll yield.
Can I make a comment, Steve?
Oh, absolutely.
When I wrote that on Facebook, I should have thought it out better. I didn't mean inspection of your farm or anything like that. I should have said to have an audit of all the animals that we have. That's what I meant, I should have used a different word instead of inspection. So I understand what you're saying about that. I do feel that it's
not everyone's going to be able to afford
my general belief is, I grew up on a dairy farm, and my family were dairy farmers for 100 years. And we went from using bulls to AI, and we tremendously improved our herds. And then things changed, and I'm going back to the Devon's way, which I think the 1920s were the best time for farming, because that's where really good inventions were made and progress was made before World War II and Depression. So I like the old ways, but the point that I really want to make is we have bulls on our website that are nice looking bulls, but why do I want to use this bull over that bull? I have no reason to know why. And I asked Bruce, this is just general statement, Bruce, why is how come there's no proofs on these bulls? And Bruce says, well, it's not the association's responsibility. I understand that. It's not. We shouldn't be saying use this bull or that bull, but we should be saying this bull is plus on milk. He's plus on butterfat. He's plus on protein. He's shorter. There's a beautiful bull down here in Virginia. His name is Patrick. Beautiful bull, but he's like 3 foot tall. So he's not very statuesque. And there's Tito, who's a larger bull. but we should be able to look at these animals and say, this is why I want to use this bull. This is going to help me improve our udders, which in the dairy milking Devons, the udder is not very good. We need to improve that. I've seen some Bob Van Kirk in Pennsylvania has a beautiful milking Devon cow with a beautiful udder. I haven't seen anything like that except on one of my cows in the Devon world. So these are things that DNA can help with. I know it's a cost, but everything has a cost. I mean, if I was to go out and buy a Devon, I want to know everything I can for to pay that price. And the price of cows right now are crazy. I mean, they're where farmers want them to be, but if you wanted to start farming, and you got to pay $3,000 for a 2-year-old heifer coming in the calf, you want to make sure that calf, if you're going to milk her, you want her to hopefully give you that milk that you want, because $3,000 for a cow, a grade cow, in my mind, is crazy. I mean, you'd have to milk that cow for 20 years, never sell her, and have a heifer every year to make your money back on that one cow.
I understand. And I agree with what you're saying about, wanting to have the information to make better choices.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is where I'm not saying don't do it for yourself, but make it optional. Because if you're going to bird sire, right,
Emily,
you're going to stud that out.
Emily, if I could just jump in and
Please.
let Steve know that Terry and Luke have both been waiting for a chance to talk
Yep.
now. So,
Yes.
And I'm not sure, Steve, you don't see the hand sign up on the.
No, I don't. I don't.
That's
So
good.
if you
That's
can,
good to know,
you can
'cause
flag them for me, that would be helpful.
If I
didn't
could
want
just
people
say
to
though,
do
since
it.
he was responding,
I'll yield back to Emily now. Thank you.
and then I'll yield back. But what I would say is make this optional. And if you want to have a stud, I'm just horse terms because that's my history. But if you want to stud an animal out, then go through the legwork, pay the extra money, and then you can charge more for those semen samples. I think, it's everybody's due diligence to get that information, number one, if you're going to breed to an animal. So if I'm looking for my next bull, I'm going to ask all of those questions. How high are they? I want pictures and videos of, their parents, if possible. I look at all these things, and that's my responsibility. I want to know how that animal functions in its system and what that system is. But there's so much that DNA is not going to tell me that I think is actually more important.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
I'm saying, I agree with you that we should be looking for what's better, but I don't know that we need DNA to do that. And so that's why I say don't make this mandatory, make it optional. And if you want to do that and you want to charge more for your animal because you can say, hey, I got the DNA parentage, go for it. But I don't want any part of that.
Okay, Bruce, can you choose who's been on a while here now?
Terry, I think you've been waiting the longest. If you want to jump in. Oh, am I muted? No, I'm not. Yep, there he is. Terry, I can't hear you, so. Nope. Can anyone hear Terry?
No.
No.
And I lost him.
Who is?
Okay, well, while he comes on, Luke, can you jump on?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the point I wanted to bring up was more of a logistical one. So when I got into Devon's about 2 years ago, I was looking around and I actually got a great offer by someone who had been in the association for a long time, had a herd of 150 milking Devons. But due to personal kind of political reasons, she had dropped out of the association about 10 years ago. And so because of that, the registrations had dropped. She got me a fantastic deal. I bought some of the cows, knowing they weren't registered. But I imagine that's not the only time there's been interpersonal squabbles among the association, as well as just farmers forgetting to do paperwork because we're out with cows and, don't like sitting down at desks. And having the DNA testing that could potentially resolve some of these issues, both with interpersonal drama as well as just paperwork stuff, for me would be helpful going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Terry, are you online now? Still can't seem to get the Terry, so Steve, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. All right. So are we taking care of everybody who had a question then?
Bruce, Eric has his hand up.
Thank you. I missed that. My
Yeah, and
apologies.
Terry actually messaged me that he had a customer show up, so he had to drop off temporarily. But I'm married to Emily, and so we kind of have similar views on our farm. But I just want to address a couple things that Luke said, that you bought the cows because you got a deal, but knowing that they weren't registered. I mean, so you're kind of defeating the point of the DNA, because you wouldn't have, if you would have been able to register them easy with DNA, you wouldn't have gotten the deal that you got on them, probably because they would have been a registered animal or easily registerable. But that's only assuming all of their lineage had been previously DNA tested. And
Eric,
then
can I just interrupt you for a second though?
Yeah.
On that though, I think we should also remember that if those animals, if he could verify that by DNA typing that those animals were who they were supposed to be and were Devons, those would be animals that we don't lose. This organization loses a lot of animals because paperwork doesn't keep up. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and I support the idea that if individual farms want to use that as a method, then that can be used as a way to help with paperwork for farms that have good records, that keep their paperwork, and that don't want to have all of that testing done. Because the other side of that is that you had mentioned earlier about using the DNA to try to improve your line, looking at beef genetics or looking at milk genetics or A2 or things like that. Well, now you're kind of using the DNA to steer away from whatever the ancestral line is. You can look at it a different way, but if you're using DNA specifically to try to steer towards a more beefy animal, pretty soon you're just going to have a red Devon, not a milking Devon. Or maybe you're going to steer towards a just a milking animal, so maybe you're not going to have the tri-purpose for oxen. Maybe you're going to forget about smart animals that are trainable for oxen. And then I could go on and on about the A2, but most of the science behind that, one, is dealing with pasteurized milk, not raw milk. And two, humans have been drinking A1 for substantially longer than they've been drinking A2. And if it would have been a problem, it would have shown up 10,000 years ago, not in the last 20, 30 years, and mainly in the last few years, just because a company that decided to start doing some DNA testing found that it was a great marketing niche. Because once again, we could then look as an organization and say, well, no, we want all of our cows to be A2, so we're not going to register anything else. Or,
excuse me. Before we get too far in this, those are all nice things, but the only thing I'm recommending here for the organization is parental verification. Those other DNA tests, they're add-on, and they're always at the option of the owner of the animal if they want to pursue that. The only thing this organization really needs to know is parental verification. So all those other things are great. And if I was talking before, I was just using the broad scope of what's potentially available, but I would not require.
And that's being said now, but if you require it for parental verification, you're starting down a slope that who's to say 5 years, 10 years from now, you'll then require it for other aspects. Whereas having it as not a requirement, but an option to be able to prove parental verification for registration is a completely different matter. One is mandatory, one is optional as a way for farms to prove that if they otherwise couldn't because they don't know their lineage.
The intent of the parental verification is so that the registration process and all the problems the board has to deal with because of this paperwork shuffle. It's what's the problem? What's the fix? DNA typing for parental verification can eliminate all that so that
we can change it. It just changes it to a different method of paperwork.
And there's other organizations. The Berkshire organization doesn't require DNA testing. They do require testing for certain sires because they want to make sure that they don't have a certain gene, but that's specific. It's not parentage. So, and there's lots of other organizations, conversely, that don't do DNA, have a much larger organization and registry, and they don't have these issues. And I'm not saying that that's not shade to Bonnie at all. I'm just saying that I don't think that this solution is the only solution. And if we're really just trying to resolve registry issues, I think we can go about it another way.
Like what?
Well, I think that we need to brainstorm and think about it. I think we should look at, maybe we can talk to the Berkshire registry or the AQHA registry or some of the other organizations and actually, I mean, again, these are ideas and you're really putting me on the spot here, but I think that there are other ways as far as record keeping that we can probably go about it. And I also think that it's just in the last year, it's been so much easier to register an animal than ever before because of the online registration. So like maybe we should see how that does. And maybe we should also hold people accountable. You know, I understand that we want to have everything registered that we can, that is appropriate. But people have to be held accountable. I mean,
it's a muddy, mired mess as far as I'm concerned, listening to some of the problems that poor Bonnie has had to put up with. Sue, you're on. I see you're still on. Can you comment on some of those paperwork problems that just, like for examples that have just, you know, driven you as the registrar nuts?
Sue, you're muted. Sue, you're going to need to unmute your microphone.
There you go.
I'm working on it.
You got it.
You got it.
Well, one big problem is, like I said earlier, the seller takes the certificate of registration, hands it to the new owner and says, here, send this in. And they never do it. At that point, you've lost that animal. If the seller doesn't, the new fee structure has helped, and that's why it was put in place. What used to happen to me a lot was there were people who would only register every 5 years, or when they sold the animal, then they would register it, and they give the whole thing to the new owner. Listening to this, there's a couple things I thought of as from the perspective of the registry. If you're going to implement online registration, you're going to have to figure out how to make that DNA, if you end up requiring DNA, you're going to have to figure out how to make that dovetail with any kind of paperwork. And that's going to fall on Bonnie. She's going to be getting paperwork registration from, I'm assuming, online. And then she's also going to be getting a DNA result. And she's got to marry those, which is going to take her more time.
That's we already there is a solution for that.
Okay,
So
I'm just
we're
saying
ahead.
that
Yep.
there's always a solution, but you need to stop and think about how much time she's already spending.
And
So there's that. It's also from what you mentioned, Steve, about registered animals will sell for more. It intimates that there is going to be another population of unregistered animals, a grade registry, which means she's going to now be working 2 registries, and which is like running 2 associations as far as the paperwork. So
Well,
that's going to be a problem. Not to mention the blowback she's going to get if things aren't lining up correctly on some of the registrations. You may just be trading for a different set of problems when it comes to registering animals. I do think somebody mentioned about the being able to evaluate bulls that are in the semen bank. I'm not quite sure because I haven't used that for years, but initially some of that semen came from people who had drawn their bull, and the association then bought the semen from them. And you can require people to give you all this other information, or you can just encourage people to do it with the idea that they could then get more money for their semen. Some of the bulls, I mean, some of them, when we first started the semen the semen bank, all we had was a couple pictures, but the directors, including Ray, had gone and looked at these animals before we took them into the registry. And I have to say that I kind of agree with Emily's statement that these animals have survived for a couple hundred years without DNA. And I think it has more to do with the integrity of the breeders than the testing. I do think one place where the DNA testing would help is when you have these animals that you don't know who the parents are, and you think you know, requiring it. The animal that you're trying to register may be lost if they don't have it. But I don't know. Your only other alternative is to make your best guess. And I think that's probably what the board's been left to do. That's what they used to do when I was doing it. So I can't say that I think everybody should have to do it, but I think to encourage people to do it is probably a good idea.
Steve?
Yes.
Just so you know, in the chat room, someone was asking, they thought earlier in the meeting, you had said that if it was required if the association did it, it would be cheaper than if an individual member
Yes.
budgeted it.
Yes.
Did you say that?
Yes. Yep.
I just want to respond to that. So
Sure.
you know, Luke is waiting to talk and Andrew is waiting to talk.
Okay. Go ahead, Luke.
Cool. 2 points. So one with regard to the amount of work the registrar does.
Yes.
I do think there's probably tons of ways that it can be kind of more digitized and workload can be reduced by using technology. And 2, worst case scenario, even if you can't and everything has to be done manually, I don't see why there couldn't be, say, 2 or 3 registrars who have, who delegate and work together to kind of spread that workload out among more people. So I don't think workload alone on a single unpaid volunteer should be a
burden.
Yeah, or a immovable objection. And then second point to the fact that the animals have survived without DNA testing for hundreds of years is totally true. But they've also survived without a registry, primarily based in New England, for hundreds of years. And I'd just like to see as many eligible animals as possible be in the association. So,
yeah.
Andrew?
Okay.
So I'd like to agree with, getting flustered here. Agree with Steve that when I became a director, it was very disappointing to take a peek behind the curtain and see some of the issues that we were having. But over the years, it's probably an unpopular opinion, but all of those fall on as a failure of the breeder in some way. Some of them foreseeable, some of them, maybe they didn't foresee. But accountability was brought up earlier, and I do think that it falls on all of us to fix those. I know that's probably unpopular, but every single one of these issues could have been headed off had people done what needed to be done when it needed to be done. I understand some of the benefits that DNA would bring, but you've already heard from several people, I think, that most likely will not comply if it's required. Those are animals that are going to be lost immediately to the registry. And so I feel very confident that the net benefit is not going to be there. You're going to lose more cattle than you end up saving. Just for instance, the directors can tell you a couple of months ago, we got a letter from a breeder that said that they had not registered cattle because our current fees created a financial hardship. If you add $20 to $50 per animal onto that, that exasperates it. We're currently pretty much a volunteer organization. I believe this will most likely push us over the edge to where we will no longer be able to be that way. And I don't think our current fee structure is sustainable if we have to start outsourcing or paying everybody what they're worth. So those are my big concerns for not having it be mandatory. I would not have a problem with a voluntary program, and I think a voluntary program would kind of highlight the fact that you are going to lose a lot of animals if you do make it mandatory. And the one thing that I would like to, the question that I have, you mentioned registering previously unregistered animals that were sold without papers. If I drop dead tonight, my cattle will most likely be set for sale tomorrow. And it's not a hypothetical, but in situations like that, there have been people that have come in and bought maybe the top half or 2/3 of a herd, and then the bottom cattle get clumped together and sold at a reduced cost without papers. If the association goes to the policy that you're going to allow that new owner to come and re-register the cattle that my wife sold unregistered, or if I decided to call them and I sold them unregistered, I would not want to be a part of that. I just don't think that it's right to undercut your breeders that way. That's abusive as far as I'm concerned. I know that works against saving as many animals as possible, but I just don't think it's right to undercut your breeders that way. And with that, I'll yield.
John Hammond and Mark would both like to join us, Steve. I don't mean to get in your way.
No, please do, because I'm not seeing them. So,
okay, John.
Yeah, my name's John Hammond. I live in Cornish, New Hampshire. This is the first time I've sat in on a annual meeting. I've had Devon cattle for I guess it's 12, 13 years. I owned them with another fellow, and I bought them out 4 or 5 years ago. I have had some experience with DNA testing. I've been a Suffolk Punch draft horse breeder for the last 40 years, and we implemented DNA testing because we were concerned about the purity of the breed. And initially what we did was we started out where only the sire was DNA tested. And as things went along, we we had someone that donated some money to the association that paid for all the DNA testing for the females. So over the course of 5 years, we were able to get the all of the breeding animals tested. We are a small organization, not unlike the Devon Association. We were, I think, our high water mark as far as foals was 135 foals annually. I think we probably got less than 1,500 animals in North America. But that also, that DNA testing, we use Texas A&M. I didn't know if the Devon Association has looked into who does DNA testing and does the records, but we've had some very good dealings with Texas A&M. The other thing that when we went to DNA testing, our secretary, the workload increased considerably. She was a secretary for 40 years that worked on a volunteer basis. And it got to the point where she was spending a lot of time. So what we had to do was we had to raise our fees and to start paying the secretary or the registrar who did the paperwork an annual fee. That's just my history in DNA testing. It's an adjustment. It's an expense. The other thing that we have worked with the Livestock Conservancy, they put a lot of emphasis on genetic diversity. They commented that with DNA testing, some of the top sires were being used, and so what was happening, there was an overload of, say, a sire that was had a bunch of sons, and what they did was they went to a Sparks testing, which gave you breeding coefficients on what was bred too close and what was optimum. Of course, you can't just do a numbers game. You have to look at the conformation of an animal and disposition and that sort of thing. But I do think that the cost is going to be an issue for a lot of people. I've tried to keep up with registration and everything, and I've talked with a number of people that have bought bull calves from me for oxen and some heifers, and they've had a problem getting the paperwork done, and they've given up, which is too bad because what happens is you lose those animals. I don't know what the answer is. The only thing that we've tried to do in the Suffolk Horse Association is to try really hard to educate the new owners on what the procedure is. And those are my comments, but this has been a very interesting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Mark, would you care to jump in?
Yes, I just want to say I had all kinds of things to say, but Andrew said them for me. I want to agree with pretty much 100% that Andrew has said. As a board member, all the issues that Bonnie has, 99% is on the owner. The owner does not follow procedure, does not do the proper paperwork, passing the paperwork to get these animals registered. That's not going to change whether you DNA or not. If the owner does not do its paperwork and do the responsibility, what they got to do for the animal, it's going to get lost no matter what. The other thing is too, you're going to increase costs to people. But on the other hand, too, I agree with Steve as well. The DNA will show you where the strong points of the breed are and where the weak points are. as a owner of Devon cattle, I constantly call out the bad animals. Okay. Every owner can do that individually within their own herd. So if you got some animals and if you know anything about cattle and the legs of the cattle or the milk of the cattle or whatever, everybody has a different purpose what they have for their breed. It's a tri-purpose breed. So you got a milk, you got beef, and you got draft. And I raise cattle for mostly draft animals. I do want good milking animals to raise a good calf, but I call out animals that do not follow my qualifications. But if I want to improve my herd, DNA would help that. I could go to somebody and say, okay, you got a bull here that genetically produces strong milking animals or strong draft animals or strong beef animals. I agree that we probably should have DNA, but that would be a premium for people to pay. But on the other hand, if you wanted to pay to have the DNA done, your animal's going to be worth more on the long end. As well as Andrew has said that a lot of people are not going to register animals if it's DNA required. You're going to lose animals, and you're going to lose animals no matter what. You got people out there today that are breeding Devons that do not register them. We don't know who they are or where they are, but if they get a chance 5 years down the road from now and they get a chance to sell them, all of a sudden, oh, I want to register my animals. Well, you should have thought of that 4 years ago or before this. I mean, you got to have a plan. You can't just wake up today, okay, I lost 10 years of my herd. Now I want to register the animals. Well, too bad. You made the wrong mistake 10 years ago. I mean, I just strongly feel that people shouldn't come back to the association. All of a sudden, they want to start registering the animals, but they haven't done their homework to that point. Uh, Everybody has a herd of these Devon animals. Some people have Devon animals that are just lawn ornaments. They buy them, they put them out in the pastures, and they grow they eat the grass. Some people grow animals that have milking animals that they want to milk and get the A2 benefit out of that. Other people have them just because they like them no matter what. But I guess when the buyer buys a Devon animal, they ought to have an idea what they want to do for that animal's purpose. If they're just genetically just going to raise it to its death, or they want to raise it to improve the breed, or whatever, it's going to happen with that. But 99% of the problems they're having in this associate now falls on the owner. The owner's not doing his paperwork. That's the reason why I had to take down the transfer on the website. There's big letters above the transfer that says the original paperwork has to be sent into the registrar. Nobody was doing that. That's why Bonnie has a hard time doing this paperwork. And she sits a pile on our desk saying these people do not turn the paperwork in. It's just one of those rules that happens with the association. So, but I'm just saying that 99% of the problems right now is on the owners not doing what they should be doing and coming up with a plan of how they want their herd to go. And so I'm for registering it. If you want to pay extra to get DNA testing, that's good too. Steve, I would think you ought to highlight saying what the actual procedure is to DNA this and what the actual cost is, because a lot of people are scared of doing this because they don't know. If you don't know something, you're not going to be able to do it. So the more people are educated about DNA, the better it is. But it's your animal. You can do whatever you want to do, but don't come back on the association or the directors and say, "Oh, you didn't do your part." It's not we didn't do our part. The owner didn't do their part. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Steve, I think Eric and Luke want to jump in. Eric, if I have it right, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what the last gentleman just said, that it seems like the bigger problems with registration really is owners and whether the new buyer or the seller messing up paperwork in the process. And I just don't see DNA fixing that when it comes to an owner being lazy about it. And that we really want owners in the association that are going to be intentional anyway, back to the idea of culling animals that don't need to be bred, so that, yeah, we might lose some animals out of our official numbers by, getting rid of some of our breeding stock. I mean, we have two of our heifers that we're not going to let their lines continue to breed because they're just, even though based on their lineage, they look great, we prefer not to, and we're not going to sell them as breeding heifers. They're going to be a hamburger and steaks, but that I don't think the DNA is going to fix that issue because then the new owner has to not just send in paperwork, but get someone to do testing, send in testing. It's like, to me, it's just trying to fix a problem by creating more of a problem that also has many of its own downsides. And I will yield.
Thank you, Luke. I'm sorry. Thank you. Luke, did you want to jump back in?
Yes. So on the issue of paperwork failures being a matter of a breeder's personal accountability, that's tough because many of us are doing this for reasons of legacy and passing stuff on to our children. One breeder's mistake can affect more than just them. It affects future generations of both cattle and people. So I'd mainly just love to see the path that removes as much potential for human error as possible, just for the sake of the breed and for future breeders. I yield.
Keith, you're back on the floor.
Okay, so looks like we've got, if my counting heads is right here, about 18 people as a group. Okay, and thanks for the feedback, because, you know, we need this to work together as an association for the benefit of the breed. So it sounds like to me, and please let me know here, that if this was a voluntary program, would that get everybody on board with at least pursuing the DNA parent verification, so that it can be recognized by the association and maybe used to help in some of these problems?
Yeah.
I would like some assurance that we weren't going to go further to make it mandatory. I think that I'm fine doing some type of voluntary, supporting some type of voluntary system. But my biggest fear is that this will be the slippery slope. You give an inch, you take a mile. And I know that that's not the intent. And I apologize for saying that, but I don't have the other words. So I do not want this to ever be mandatory. And that's the only way that I would be okay with pursuing it.
To answer the question, Emily, that would all have to come back to this, the association to be voted on. That's not, if any change were to be made in that. And at that time, maybe, our grandkids can wrestle with that problem. But if we were to make it voluntary now, and the point being is, there's a whole lot more work that needs to be done. Even if we said, yay, go ahead for it. We've got to get all these other issues squared away as to, which lab, what costs, how is the paperwork going to be reported to the association? How are we going to catalog it? Is the organization going to truly take that DNA and as a permanent identification mark so that you can quit doing tattoos? You don't need your certificate. There's a whole bunch to get going here. But if the organization is flat out no DNA typing, then it's, let me go work with my cows. I don't need to be trying to figure this stuff out, day in, day out. So, but if the organization wanted to move ahead and voluntary is the way you want to make it, I'm on board with that. But we need a little more direction here, and this is why we're having this discussion.
So just for the record, my vote would be no DNA testing at all. If you guys do need to do it and feel very strongly and the majority wants to do it, make it only voluntary and no mandatory. Thanks.
Okay.
I have a question, Steve.
Yes.
When they do the DNA testing, even if it's just for the parental heritage type of thing, is all that other data available from that one test? In other words, is it sitting on a spreadsheet somewhere? And you get it if you pay for it, but otherwise somebody else has that kicking around with
that is a very good question, Derek, and I've asked that, and to the best information I've gotten back is they're only going to look for a specific number of markers for the parent verification. There's 3 million genes that they can use, and there's a international organization that have picked out like 20, 29, 30 of these that say these are the ones you should use for parental verification. Now, if it's some place that can saves your DNA sample, let's just say for sake of argument here, we're submitting hair samples for the root of the hair samples, pulling tail hairs. They're going to have the tail hairs, and they have the DNA sample there. I don't know what's going to keep them from. I mean, are they going to decide someday they're going to do the complete genome on your cow or your bull you send in? I don't. You'd have to read the terms and conditions of each lab you're dealing with. Is the only way I can think of. But if it's just parental verification, I think that's the only markers they're looking for.
So it sounds to me like if you do send in a sample, they would have access to all that other information. And for the record, I don't think anything should be mandatory as far as DNA is concerned for this organization or any others. But my other concern would be there was a company called 23andMe that just went bankrupt, that everybody went and got their DNA tested for humans, and now all that data is up in the air as to what's happening with it, if it's being sold, and people don't know what's going on with their data that is out there. So if something in the future came up where the data for these cows was valuable for some reason, it could be out there anywhere, and wouldn't necessarily be in the owner's control, the animal owner's control. So that would be a concern of mine.
Oh no, they're going to steal Bossy's identification? Oh dear.
So Steve, you're making light of that, but
yeah. Can I ask
Go
you
for
something?
it?
Yeah. Sue, you first. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I wasn't lighting up. That's why I wasn't sure if you could hear me. I was thinking when you first started talking about, well, it could just be voluntary.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you start talking about the data that comes out of those samples, the DNA results, it sounds like the association is going to have possession of that information.
I'm sorry, you got cut out. Can you repeat that, Susan?
It sounds to me like if you're going to participate on a voluntary,
yep.
Can you still hear me? A
Yes.
voluntary basis, but then you're talking, it's sounding like the DNA results is going to be held by the association to use it to resolve these paperwork issues. And then I'm thinking, why cannot each breeder, if they want a DNA test, fine. They hold the data until it's needed. And then if there's an issue with paperwork, they have the paperwork, the DNA results, and they share it with the association. I don't understand why the association needs to be holding other people's data if there's no issue with it.
Yes, I didn't cover that, and that was again one of the things to figure out, Sue. And I'm all for, if I'm the one paying for it, I should have the results. The only thing, as far as it's kind of like a chain of custody. If it becomes something, a legal battle, and for some, I don't know what reason, but everybody likes to sue for some reason. If that chain of custody went straight from the lab to the association, and the association owned the information, then in a legal battle, that might be better. But if, as far as what we're talking about, yes, to keep the paperwork, to reduce the paperwork and some of the other cataloging necessary, it may be best to each owner, gets that information. And another thing before I forget, if we really wanted to, again, I'm picked these ideas from somebody else, but these hair samples, the hair samples, if properly stored, are good forever. And if we had a way to catalog all those, I mean, you could just submit a hair sample with your registration. It gets put in the file where the registration certificates and all that are, or something like that. We could store this for future reference if we ever did decide to change our minds. And that's a possibility too, but it seems like it's an awful lot of work. Somebody's got to maintain these things to stay dry and, make sure no vermin get in there or whatever. So, but okay.
But the only thing that I just thought of is it also puts the association squarely in the middle of a legal battle that they had no hand in creating. To me, it should be between the seller and the buyer.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Emily, sorry we cut you off there, but yes.
No, good. I just say that to the points about 23andMe, this is a huge business, is selling DNA data, is categorizing it. And so I really have huge concerns. And this is one of the reasons why I don't want anybody getting my animals data. I don't do 23andMe for myself. I think Big Brother really does exist. And if there's questions about that and you're not, convinced, I would invite you to do a little more digging. I also think that there is a huge international push against cows, and there's concerns for global warming and issues with, cow farts and cow burps. And so I do not want to do anything that is going to potentially, excuse me, sorry, I got a message from work, but I don't want to do anything that's going to open myself up to that and open my animals up to that. And just FYI, the UC Davis, so when you go test your animal for A2, they then own that data. I've looked into it. It's in the contract. I don't want anybody else owning my data. And so I just think that, to the points I think it was Dennis made, I just completely agree. I think that there's a lot of concerns. I think, for me, it's not worth the risk.
Thank you, Emily. Steve and Dora would like to jump on.
Oh, yes. Dora, how are you? Oh, can't hear you, Dora.
Dora, I think you're muted, or at least you're not being heard. And now you are muted.
I wish I could
Steve, I don't think our microphone's working.
Yeah, I wish I could read your lips. I can't. I'm sorry, Dora, I can't hear you. If you can hear us.
If you can hear us, Dora, we can't hear you. You could put your message in the chat, type it in, and I'll read it for you.
Starting to sound like a seance.
He's saying I can hear you.
Sorry, still can't hear you, Dora. Okay.
Hopefully she'll log back on and have voice.
Yep.
See if your floor's back yours.
Okay. All righty. Any other Any other questions or anything in the chat room?
No, not yet. I'm watching it. I will mention that we started with 29 members. We have 16 members online now. For whatever that's worth.
Okay.
So does that conclude the discussion? Everyone's had their thoughts heard?
Yeah, I think except for Dora.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we can't hear her.
Dora's trying to figure out how to unmute. I'm trying to tell them now on the chat that there's a mute and unmute button.
I don't think the mute button is her issue. It appears to be your mic because you can tell when she's muted and unmuted, and even when she's unmuted, you can't hear her.
Yeah, that's what I was saying there too. A mic seemed to be turned on, but no sound was coming through, if you will, according to my screen. But John Hall, I'm watching the chat room. There are no more messages. I'm watching in case Dora comes on.
Yeah, we'll give it a minute. I don't
Hang
want
on,
to cut
Dora's
any.
back again for a moment. Let me ask her to unmute. No, unfortunately, she's still muted.
It shows that she's unmuted, but we can't hear her.
That's correct. Heck. It's going to be frustrating for her.
An idea.
Dora, if you click on the top right of your computer screen, right beside the web address, if it says app.zoom.us, you should be able to click on a little thing right there that gives you access to your microphone just for this web page, because most likely your browser is blocking the microphone use. And it'll give you a toggle of, microphone either only this time from this website or every time from this website. That might be a fix for it. But it's the top left, just barely left of where your web address is listed.
Okay. Well, I know Dora's got my number. She can give me a shout anytime if you're listening, Dora. I was thinking maybe if you called me, I could put my phone on speakerphone. And
Yeah, Steve, why don't we do that? She says in the chat she's on an iPhone. Eudora, why don't you call either Steve or myself's cell phone number, and we'll put you on speaker so you can at least be heard by the group. Do you have Steve's number or do you want mine?
I know she's got my number, so okay.
Yeah, hopefully she calls you, Steve, and
Yep.
you can put her on speaker and we can hear her take
All right.
comments.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me, Dora?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. You're on. All right.
Well, I can't. It tells me I'm on mute, but it won't. I can hear y'all just fine, but I can't figure this out.
No, No problem. Now we can hear you. What do you have any questions? I've got you right up against my my iPad.
I heard. No, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to. I'm listening to it. Yes. I probably agree at this time that we should not make parentage mandatory for registration. I couldn't get it on the thing. I got it on my phone, but I can't talk, but I can listen. Okay, that's fine. Can you still hear me? Okay?
Yep. Go ahead, Dora.
Okay, great. So, you know, at this time, I think it's going to take more for people to get accustomed to parentage verification.
Okay.
Maybe that's what we should call it, parentage verification, rather than DNA testing, because it kind of seems like everybody is scared of DNA.
Yeah.
But DNA now is used for all kinds of things. They're still going at it. Select animals for breeding purposes that help you accomplish your breeding goals. I have multiple reasons why I do the testing that I do with my herd. It's to accomplish the goals that I have in mind for my own individual direction that I want to go.
Okay.
Likewise, if I was trying to select animals that I'm looking for, if I go on the hunt across the United States and I'm looking for animals that will help me achieve my breeding goals, and there's no DNA, no parentage verification for me to have some kind of further information, I'm stacked against just buying some bull that I like the way he looks, and I don't know what he's going to do for my herd. Is he going to set me 10 years? Going to jump forward 10 years?
On the phone, I can't talk, but I can hear him.
Can I interject, Bruce? Do you have the capability to mute that phone number?
Wife called me and she couldn't get me in to talk.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's continue.
I'm sorry. Yep. Go ahead, Dora. Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, it's okay. It's fine. So just my personal feelings about it is I'm doing it solely to accomplish a direction that I want to go with my herd. And like's been said before, like Mark said, you know, Devons are triple purpose: meat, milk, and draft. And everybody can choose, you know, kind of what you want to do with that. There is an issue with udder quality in this breed, and it's a significant issue. You'll have cows when they're young, they look fine, but by the time they're 8-9 years old, they blow out of teeth or they've got low suspension. Yeah, they may produce a lot of milk with low suspending udders, but you know, that's not sustainable with an udder. They lay down, they step on a teeth or something like that, or the teeth get real big. With certain DNA testing, you can elect to find the genes for dairy form or for fat or for protein. It's all different, you know, tests that you can elect to do. They're all their own charge for it. There's not just one whole test that you could do that tells you everything you could possibly know. They don't exist like that. So you can itemize and you could select, you know, what exactly do you want to see in your animals? And everybody could do that, you know, if they wanted to, voluntary from their herd's standpoint and the goals you're trying to reach. Like Mark, if he wanted to try to, you know, improve the milk in his herd, okay, right now, nobody has any information whatsoever on our bulls. None. But what I have found with my own herd and my testing, I now have a selection of bulls that I have tested for milk yield that are a score higher than my cow that I milked for 3 lactations and still milking that produced over 5 gallons of milk. I have some of her bull calves that have produced a milk yield higher than she was. I'm still in the experimental phase okay, yes, it says that on paper. What does that mean in real life? That takes years to develop and to see what that all means. And even if we do even if it, say we were going to do some milk testing, milk gene testing on our Devon cows. Okay. So my cow that scored a 5, for instance, for milk yield, to score 5, what does that mean in pounds of milk? Well, we won't know that unless enough of us test our herd and back that up with hard data. So, for example, Dale Fryer's got 4 years of milk yield data on his cows. I only have about 3 years with one cow. But, does a milk yield 5, okay, what is that, 50 pounds of milk, 60 pounds of milk? It would take us some time to plug in some hard data to what that scoring means. But it took all these other associations that have bulls that have EPDs. That's only comparable to that breed. So we would have to, it would take some time. But it would, like me, for instance, I don't want to go buy a bull from New York or Florida or wherever that's a milk yield 2 when I've got a milk cow that I've milked for 3 years that's a milk yield 5. Why would I want to select a bull that's a 2? And if I don't have that information, then that's what I'm faced with. So the DNA, I know it's all scary stuff, for some people, but it boils down to what a lot of you have already said. What are your goals for your herd? What do you want Devons for? What do you want to use them for? If you just want a red cow with horns, go get one that looks like a Devon and doesn't have any papers. It sounds like there's plenty of them out there. But for the breeders that have a goal in mind, having no options or access to DNA information it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack to try to find an American Milking Devon that you know something about, that you could access genetics to improve your herd and accomplish your goal. So me, as a serious breeder, that I actually didn't start out that way, but it became that way. That's why I'm totally 100% behind the DNA. What it can give us for our breed, the information that it can give us. So I yield. I hope everybody heard me.
Yeah. No, that worked. So,
okay.
Yeah. All right. And along that same line, talking about timing, this parent verification, the sooner, here's the thing, the sooner something got started, the sooner some of these issues will resolve themselves. We need to build a database if you're going to try to make any decisions. If you just, I'm with Dora, if you like, looking at a pretty cow, don't worry about it. But if you have goals you have specific goals, there's an opportunity for you there too. And all I know is that parent verification saved me a whole bunch of money one time when someone tried to sell me a bull, and I didn't think the bull calf, and it required the tail hair samples, actually pulled them myself, of the bull, the dam, and the calf. And guess what? Mama and Papa weren't that calf's mama and Papa. So I'd like to think people had all kinds of integrity, but I don't know what happened here, and I'm just glad I didn't fall into that mess. So anyway.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
I have a, something on that point. You're exactly right. And like Mark says, it is the breeder's responsibility to make sure it's our integrity as breeders, to make sure what we send in for registration, that's what it says on the papers.
Yep.
That's 100% on us as the breeders. But like you say, I think somebody mentioned something about AQHA and how do these other associations, I can't remember who it was, but how do the other associations, that there's some other way to do it other than parentage verification through DNA. And there is no other way.
Yep.
That is the way that you purify your herd, purify the herd. And I kind of go back to, yes, the Devons have been around a long time, but do we have what we think we have, people? Do we? Prove it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If the Devons have been around 400 years, we have some red cattle with horns that have some lineage behind them. I'm not discounting anything, because I mean, if it isn't, then I'm in the same boat as everybody else. I don't have who I think I have. But if we, as breeders now, want the breed to last like we think we have it right now, what is the harm in putting the proof behind it? What is the harm? I don't see any harm in it. How do we make this breed viable for the future? Are we going to do it with a red cow with horns with no papers? I don't think so. We all know and are passionate about this breed for a multitude of reasons. So what is the harm to prove it? I personally don't see the harm in it. There's always, what's somebody going to do with the DNA? Well, who's going to take your DNA on that envelope you licked and stuck in the mail yesterday? I mean DNA is everywhere. And I mean, I don't see a problem in our Devons having a little bit of DNA out there. Heck, maybe someday somebody says, wow, that's a super breed that we should have been looking at all this time. I mean, none of us are going to live around to see what crazy thing they do with our Milking Devon genetics in some bank somewhere.
Yep, I hear you.
Yeah, we all want to protect the future and this, that, and the other. But in the meantime, are we going to lose the beauty of this breed by indiscriminately breeding one animal with horns to another animal with horns, and they're red? I mean, what are our kids going to do with our breed when we're gone? Are they going to have, if they have something on paper, like right now, my son, I don't think my cattle are going to survive me. I don't think my kids give two beans about my cows. But maybe if I have something on paper, maybe they do survive me. I don't know. I just don't see any. I think there is more good for our breed as a whole for the future with some availability to some of their genes, whether it's beef, milk, whatever. I think our breed will have more benefits from it than problems.
Okay.
And I do think with being, if somebody has a herd and they've had animals out there for several years that are not registered, I think that is a 100% avenue for them to have a way to get papers back on some of these animals, because you could say, I'm pretty sure that cow had a calf by that bull over there, but there was also a yearling bull out there. Well, okay, now you could find out who the sire is and dam to that calf. And I think we could recover a lot of unregistered animals by doing that. But I don't think it should be mandatory right yet. I'm not saying I'm against it that 100%, in the future, but because I don't want to go purchase an animal, and like I said, I think I know what I bought according to its papers, but your story, it wasn't what it said.
Nope.
No. Not saying that anybody did it intentionally. My best memory is that's the mom and that's the dad. Well, when they're all over there in the weaning pasture, who lost their ear tag or who didn't get tattooed? You know what I mean? It could easily happen. And I'm one of the worst forgetters probably that's in the association. So
I don't know.
I'd like
There's
to-
a bunch of us.
I'd like to interject a second, if I could.
Yeah.
Your story, Steve, about your calf, and it sounds like you had some suspicions to begin with, whether that calf was from those parents. There's a Latin term, which is also a legal term, which is caveat emptor, which means buyer beware. It's the buyer's responsibility to make sure to verify to their best ability whether or not what they're buying is the animal that they're buying. And if that includes DNA testing, well, that should be on the buyer. I think that the cattlemen of yore back in the 19th century and whatever, they had these impediments, and it was probably harder for them to go look at an animal halfway around the world to see if that animal before they bought it was what they were looking for. So I think that these problems with parental heritage have been around a long time and been solved by people who understood the animals that they were looking for, not necessarily the DNA of the animal, but could tell by looking at them. I don't want to put you on the spot, John, but I didn't know you're probably the been around these Devons the longest of anybody here, and I was wondering if we might be able to get your opinion on what you thought of DNA testing compared to just card grading. Or I've seen the the videos of you and Ray card grading animals before, and didn't know what your thoughts were on this whole topic.
Well, let me say this. I've been around a while. Maybe Sue remembers this. There were less than 200 animals in the whole breed. That was it, in the whole population in the 1970s. My grandfather Green owned 100 of them, roughly. My parents owned 25, 30, sometimes 35. And the rest of them came from one of those two places originally. I mean, you can say, yeah, they were up with the people in New Hampshire. I can't think of the name, the funeral home guy, Zigra. He lived in Deep River right next to us. He bought cattle from my father in the 40s and 50s. They're all interrelated back then. And when we needed a new bull when I was young, we went to my grandfather's. And if you found a bull that was 2 generations removed from what you had in the barn, that was rare. Rare. I mean, that was your DNA choice. And like Derek said, when you went to look at an animal, I think a number of you remember my uncle Cyril. He'd look at a Devon in 1 second, right, Mark? And give you an evaluation. Take him 1 second. The animal any good or not? My grandfather Green was just as good or bad, however you look at it, in evaluating animals and what should be called. And, I do the same thing. I got a trailer outside. I got 12 freezers, a lot of Devon beef from animals that probably shouldn't get rebred. And we sell it at markets like crazy. And I sell a number of steers for oxen. There's a number of others do here in New England. But that's all changed. This breed association has grown with the work the directors have done in the last 25 years. And look at the numbers we have. And now look at the problems we have. And some of the problems we have, and I agree with what's been said, it's not the cattle's fault. It's the people that have managed the cattle have caused this problem. People that sell cattle and deliberately don't send in the registrations. And we know who some of them are. And they hand them off to the new people because they don't want to deal with the association. They don't even join the association nor support it, yet they'll get on social media and tell you how great the stewards they are of the breed. That's a bunch of BS. If you want to steward this breed, you join the association and you help. I don't care what differing opinions you had. We've heard 40 different opinions today, and that's great. That's what a group does. And then they come together to consensus and we move forward. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish here. I'm not looking to repeat the problems the Devon associations had in the 50s when they split, or the Red Devon Association when they implemented DNA and half their members left and half their cattle base left. I don't want that to happen here. So I think we'll take all these opinions under advisement. The board will meet. This is why I didn't want to do any motions today. And we'll hammer out something, how we move forward, whether it's voluntary, what part's voluntary, what's mandatory. We'll discuss it and we'll bring it back, like I said, to the membership with some proposals that can be voted on and maybe voted on by ballot. But I want to do this fair for the whole association. I want to see this association continue and be strong and grow like it has been. So long answer, Derek, to your very short question. But that's what I envision going forward here.
Thank you.
I'm not going to come out and support DNA or not. I can see the pros and the cons. I mean, personally, I'm not a big fan of doing it, but if it helps the association in some sort of way on a limited basis, I could probably support some of that. So I think we need to find consensus on how to move forward. If there's no other comments to add or not, I mean, I'm ready to end the discussion. I don't know. I don't want to shut anybody off. It's been very interesting discussion and a lot of good points made. Bruce, you're muted.
Now unmute myself. This is the first time we've had a meeting on Zoom. I think this one thing I speak for all directors. We'd like to have some feedback for the membership how that worked. So if you want to email me your comments, positive or negative, we're used to going to Tunbridge, and I think last time we had, John, maybe 10 people the last time, and this time we were pushing 30. So if you got any comments or feedback, let me know, folks, and I'll bring it to the directors meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then I don't think we need to adjourn. We'll just end the discussion. I thank you all for participating. It's been a great, I think, trial session on Zoom. I think it went very well, in my opinion, but there's always going to be a few glitches. We'll get over them.
Yep.
And thank everyone for weighing in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye, Dora.